Okay. So this is the API, experience API that we had built. Okay.
Yeah, Jagdish.
Yeah.
Yeah, before starting this one question, like, you know the difference between API kit router and API kit console?
Okay. Let me run this project first. You'll get to know. See, API kit router and API kit console. The job of these two application is same. Okay. If you get some request, you need to redirect it to appropriate flow. Okay. So both will do the same job. Like you just need to redirect the incoming request to appropriate private flow. Okay. But the only difference is API kit router, uh, like it will only redirect the request. Okay. It cannot present anything to the client application. Okay. Whereas API kit console, it can create a web page. Okay. Web page, something like how you see in your exchange. Okay. Or mock. Let me show. How you're able to see the endpoints right here. So information. So it will display this information. Okay, via console. Okay, you can hit request graphically from you from your web page itself. Okay, API kit console will return a web page basically of this API catalog in runtime. Okay, see when you enable mock service, this page is displayed on top of mock service. Okay, not on live API. Okay, whereas API kit console, it will display this same web page on top of live API. Understood, right? So let me deploy this and show you.
Jagdish, anyhow, a live API will send the data to the experience API, right?
No. Don't get confused. Not about experience API. Any mule application. Okay. Any
Okay.
mule application, if it is deployed in runtime manager, that means it's a live API. Okay. It can be experience process or anything. Okay. So if you're using API kit router, you can send request and redirect it to appropriate private flow and execute your logic. That is fine. Okay.
Okay.
Whereas if you want to view the API on top of the deployed API, like okay, so if you want to view the API catalog on top of the deployed API, you need API kit console. API kit console can represent a web page like this. It can return a web page like this. Okay, whatever you see in Exchange, right? So this Exchange portal can be built on mock service or also on live API. Like under API instances, you can add the deployed version of instance here. Okay, but right now I have added mock version. Okay.
That means this is also console, right?
Yeah, this is also console. Yeah. But
Okay.
the only difference between API kit console and this console is in this console, you can add mocked instances, also live instances. Okay, like whatever is deployed in runtime manager, the same environment instance you can add it here. Okay, whereas API kit console, it will display only on top of the live application which is deployed right now. See, I have deployed this application in local right now,
Yeah.
and I'm able to display this console page here. Okay, so I can even hit send for this. Okay, I can
Okay.
even hit send for this and get the response. Okay,
This is only for
understood, right?
testing purpose, right?
Yeah, testing. Not only testing purpose, you can use this as a live API console.
Okay.
For example, let's say your clients don't know how to use a Postman collection. Postman. Okay.
Mhm.
Like your clients don't know how to use Postman, okay, but still you want them to test your API, okay. What you can do is after you deploy it in runtime manager, you can share this console URL with them,
Okay. Okay.
okay. So which is if they see like this, they can easily understand.
So that means it will work like a some browser, right?
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, understood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Uh, so going back to this, so API kit router. Yesterday we discussed about API kit router, how like it generates private flows in its own naming convention, and how it redirects the URL. Okay. For example, let's say you don't want to use these names, flow names. Okay, you want to use your own flow names. Okay, you want to use your own flow names like menu list implementation or something like this. Okay, if you leave this as is, so you won't be able to hit the URL. Okay, so it will give you 404 error, resource not found error. Okay, so let's try. Okay, so if I hit this URL, okay, so it is expecting client secret now. From Postman. See, in from browser, I cannot send custom headers. Okay, so in these cases, I have to use Postman.
Reason?
See, the main purpose of browser is to display some like meaningful information, a web page, okay, like these kind of things. It's not a testing tool. Okay, so this is being used by wider range of audience. Okay, who doesn't even know what Postman is.
Okay.
Okay, so that's why in browser they won't give all those options. Okay, and also in browser, if you give all those options like to send custom headers and all, few hackers they can do phishing. Okay, so that means they can set their own headers with some vague values and break the system. So the browser should not have that level of functionality. It should be basic. Okay, you just need to hit the URL, get the web page, and you should interact with that web page. That's it. So in headers, okay. So if I hit this URL, it says not implemented. Okay. So it says not implemented because it's not able to look for that flow. Okay. So in this case, what I need to do is API kit router gives a functionality. Okay. To configure your own mappings. Okay. For example, let's say, see under mappings, for example, let's say for just a second, let it load. For this menu list resource, okay, and for get method, if I want to call menu list implementation flow, I can configure these manual settings here. Okay, so in API kit router configuration, Okay. So in API kit router configuration, you have option to set your custom mappings. Okay, that means for a given resource path, you can decide which flow to call. Okay, so you can also disable RAM restrictions. Okay, for example, just now I got a bad request error saying client ID or client secret not passed, right? So if I disable these validations, okay, I can still execute the API. Okay, because it won't care about what is required or what is not. Okay. So let this deploy. What is this? No child element is expected at this point. Let this redeploy. Okay. So whenever you see errors like these, right? So try to take a closer look at configuration. Okay. See, sometimes what MuleSoft does is, so if it has some mandatory values that need to be passed, it will show you an error. Okay, so that so and so configuration is missing. Okay, but sometimes these kind of errors will occur where it says at so and so line invalid content is found. Okay, so of those, let's try few options.
Jagdish, in real time also, is it mandatory to configure the API kit router, or it will do automatically?
See, the configuration that I am showing now is what happens in few companies, right? They don't like these kind of flow names. Okay, so they
Okay.
write their own names and they define custom mappings in API kit route. Okay,
Okay.
so that is the reason I'm showing you this.
Okay. If a company wants to same names, which is I mean written by
That is fine. Then
studio.
you don't have to. Yeah, then you don't have to touch API kit router at all.
Okay. One
Okay.
doubt here:
Yeah.
how the API kit router will like exactly will routed to the particular flow, a private flow? Any configuration
Okay.
there inside, and how it will know? Is there any intelligence?
No, not intelligence. It is basic string concatenation. Okay, let me show that. So I'll put a breakpoint here and run it mode. See, while generating flows from RAML, I explained you about the naming convention, right?
Yeah.
Method, resource path, then API kit router configuration name. Okay. So whenever you hit the request, all the information that is needed for API kit router is available in your request itself. Okay,
Mhm.
so from your request, it can capture method, it can capture resource path name. Only thing it needs to capture is API kit router configuration name. That will be there in application context anyway. Okay, so that's why it's able to detect and do a internal flow reference to this uh, flow. Okay, so if you want to know that exactly how it works, in Mule 3 I can write a Java code and show it to you. In Mule 4 it's not possible.
Okay.
Okay, there is something called flow construct. Okay, in Mule 3 MuleSoft has given option for developer to choose to write custom code based on the requirement by extending the Mule libraries itself. Okay, so you can use Mule provided libraries itself and write your own Java classes and modify the behavior of your components. Okay, so there is something called flow construct in MuleSoft. Okay, what flow construct does is that is responsible for flow lifecycle, like initializing the flow, calling the flow, then this discarding the flow after the flow is executed. Okay, so it's responsible for all those life cycles. Okay, so API kit router uses flow construct. Okay, so in your
Same
API,
like Java constructor.
correct, yeah, yeah. So API kit router gets all the information needed from these attributes. Okay, like method, request path, all these things. Okay, so once it gets the values that it needs, it will do a concatenation of all these things, and then it will do a flow construct to that the concatenated value. Okay, so if a flow exists with that value, then it will return you execute the flow and return the response. Else, it will throw an error saying not implemented.
Okay.
Okay, so in API kit router, since I have disabled RAML validations here, even though client ID and client secret are mandatory, it's not bothering about that. Okay, because I have disabled RAML here. Okay, so there is also a configuration here. Okay, a few people may ask in few companies, like in interviews, they ask how do you restrict the headers that you are going to pass for your API. Okay, so in RAML, I may have written, I may be using only one query parameter and two headers. Okay, but I can pass whatever I want here. Okay, I can pass whatever I want here. Okay, so instead of that, I want to enable strict validation. Like in RAML, if I have written client ID and client secret, I should receive only those two headers. I should not receive anything else. Okay, in RAML, if I have mentioned query parameters that I need to give only name or something like that, I should receive only that query parameter. Apart from that, I should not get anything else. Okay, so during that cases, you use query parameters and header strict validations. Okay, so if you select query parameter strict validations in RAML file, if you have written like that you need to accept only store ID, then you have to accept only store ID. Okay, you cannot send whatever you want. Okay, so you can only send these two. Okay, so let me do. Any more doubts on API kit router?
No.
Okay, so you are clear with how API kit router and API kit console works, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, okay. Okay, so it says bad request because I have sent something called name. Okay, name parameters are not defined in API spec. Okay, whatever is defined in API specification in your RAML, I can only send those. Okay, if you enable strict validations, you can only send whatever is configured in RAML file. Okay, you cannot send anything else apart from that. Okay, so it is recommended to implement like enable this option. Okay, reason is like if you don't enable that option, people can send anything and any value in this. Okay, they can send a paragraph for a query parameter. Okay, so you need to have proper validations in your API specification. Okay, like max length, all these validations, so that you can avoid like invalid data entering your API and breaking your API. Okay, so clear, right? So far.
Yes,
Hello.
sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. See, API kit router and API kit console use same configuration. Okay. Only different is, see, this also use API kit config, and this also use API kit config. Okay. Only difference is using API kit router, it will redirect you to the appropriate flows based on the incoming request. Okay. Whereas API kit console, this will also redirect it to appropriate flows, but only thing is, this can display a web page. Okay, like a port API portal for you. Okay, this can display API portal for you. Okay. Okay, so entering the logic part. Okay, see, whenever you generate flows from RAML, the default things that it generates is a main flow. Okay, and then it will generate a console flow. Okay, and then it will generate the private flows. Okay, based on the number of methods. For each method, it will generate one private flow. Okay, so that is how code is being scaffolded. Okay, so as part of default error handling, if you check here, it will have common message. Okay, like a hard coded message, bad request. Okay, and status as 400. Okay, this HTTP status that you are setting in this data view, how it is being used is in listener configuration. In HTTP listener configuration, if you go to responses, here you can decide what to send as part of response. Okay, as part of normal response, for example, let's say you are setting your main payload or main result in a variable. Okay, and you don't want to change payload, and while passing you need to pass the value of that variable as response. Okay, so if you want to do that, here you can modify that body. Okay, we'll discuss this in deeper. Okay, so you can decide what headers you want to set as part of your response. Okay, so you can decide what headers you want to set. Okay, you can also decide what status code you need to send by setting a variable. Okay, so that is what they're doing here. It is doing here automatically. Okay, so it sets a HTTP status as 400. Okay, like how we received here. Okay, so if I want to modify this to 200, okay, I can modify that HTTP status code. Okay, for a given error. Okay, so here, see, whenever there is a error event, right? MuleSoft will generate an error. Let me display that error object. Okay, so this will generate an error object. Okay, see, in this error object, what are all the values you can capture is okay. So you can capture error type. Okay, you can capture child errors. You can capture cause. Okay, you can capture description, detailed description, failing component. All these things you can capture. Okay, so how it will match to go to appropriate error handling block is there is something called error type dot namespace and error type dot descriptor. Okay, so identifier. Okay, so it is combination of both. Okay, like error dot uh, error type. Okay, dot namespace. So that is namespace. Okay, and identifier. Okay, so it will construct this value. Okay, so it will construct this value. Okay, so after it constructs this value based on the namespace and identifier, it will look for the matching block here. Okay, so it has matched this block and entered this scope. Okay, inside this scope, what we are doing, we are setting this payload as a bad request, and we are setting this HTTP status as 200. Okay, so once you resume this, you can see the same response here. So you are receiving 200 response, but message body is bad request. Okay, so you can customize the error response that you want to send by this way. Okay, so basically in Mule 4, error handling is simplified. Okay, so in Mule 3, you need to configure the exception class. You need to write Java expressions to capture the error. Okay, Java expressions to write the capture the error. Okay, so it was a bit difficult in Mule 3 how you write exception handling, whereas in Mule 4 it is simplified to different level. Okay, so in Mule 4 you only have on error propagate and on error continue error blocks. Okay, on error propagate in the sense it will make sure that this error is being reported always. Okay, and it will stop the message processing by that component. Okay, for example, let's say I have used logger before. Okay, I have used set payload before. Okay, so after that I have API kit router. So this is failing at API kit router. Okay, so after this API kit router also I have one more logger. Okay, so what on error propagate will do is, if it fails at API kit router, it will stop the message processing at this point itself. It will not proceed further. Okay, and then return back that error. Okay, to error handler. Okay, whatever is the payload and the values or attributes that are set in a error handler, that will be returned to client application. Okay, so it will not continue to execute further. Okay, if you use on error continue, okay, if you use on error continue, so it will capture that error. Okay, it will capture the error, execute this block, and then still continue executing the next components. Okay, because you want to ignore that error. Okay, so these are the only two types of error handling that you can see. Okay, in Mule application. Okay, so we have something called error handler. Okay, so the purpose of this error handler is, for example, let's say, see this error handling, like whatever you are seeing here, on error propagate for API, API kit bad request, API kit not found, everything. So it is written for API main flow only. Okay, it's not written for other flows. Okay, so if you want to implement globally, okay, so what you need to do is delete these error handlers. Okay, so delete these error handlers, drag and drop the error handler. Okay, or as a standard practice, you can create another configuration file also. Okay, you can create a new configuration file saying global error handler. You can name it anything. Okay, or simply errors. Okay, global error handler. Drag and drop the error handler. Okay, inside error handler, drag and drop on error propagate. Okay, inside error handler, drag and drop the on error propagate. Okay, so while configuring the error type for this, okay, so the default behavior is, if you're not configuring any error type, all errors will be reported here. Okay, or if you configure as any, that means all errors will be reporting here. Okay, so it won't proceed, like it won't look for other on error propagate also. For example, let's say I have two on error propagates. Okay, so in first on error propagate I'm matching for any. So in second on error propagate I match for API kit bad request. Okay, since the first block is matching for everything, it will execute this block itself, it won't come here. Okay, so while generating the response, the standard practice is to capture the errors dynamically. Okay, see here, you need to capture the errors dynamically. Okay, like detailed description and everything. You should not generate generic messages like bad request. People can never understand what is happening at the backend. Okay, you need to report proper errors. Okay. So for that, you need to assume that you have a error payload here, and you need to decide what response you need to generate. Okay. So what are all the like very like valid points for this is we need to print error type. Okay. Like error dot error type. Okay. Dot namespace. Okay. And then identifier. You need to join by this. Okay. So anybody has any question? Okay. So error type. Then you can print description. Okay. Which is this one. You can give it as error description. Okay. For this, you can give error dot detailed description or description. Anything is fine. Okay. So in this, you just print error occurred. Okay. So here, deploy the API now. It's failing with the 500 error. Okay. So the reason it is failing with 500 error is, see, I have configured error handler here. Okay. But I'm not referring it anywhere. Okay. I'm not referring it anywhere. So what I need to do is go to configurations and create global configuration. Okay. So here you need to mention the default error handler. Okay. Mention the default error handler.
Jagdish, in real time also we'll do global error handling only, right? Max. Jagdish.
Yeah, you will always use a global error handler. So like
Okay.
so depends, like few flows you need to use a flow specific error handler.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. See here in error handling stack, first I have mentioned any, right? Even though it matches for API kit bad request, it's not going there. Since it is matching for every error, it is executing this and giving me this response. Okay. So see, this is the
Because
response
we
it's.
given any right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
Mm,
So any. Okay. But see,
okay.
if you here here I am getting HTTP status as 500. Okay. I want to change this. Okay. So for this, there is one approach. Okay. You need to know the standard HTTP status codes. Okay. So go to HTTP status codes. So list out the types of like status codes that you want for that you need to send. Okay. For bad request, it is 400. Okay, so I don't want to manually set this. Okay, so for example, let's say I want to use single block of error handling, and I want to capture everything. Okay, I want to, but throw appropriate error status code. Okay, earlier what used to happen when it generated different on error propagates, it had its own HTTP status value and hard coded value. Okay, for 400. Okay, so you can avoid that using that. So let's create a data view module here. Okay, new folder. I will again explain this. Okay, don't worry. While explaining data view, I'll again explain how this modules work. Okay, so give HTTP status codes dot dw. Okay. Okay. So here I need to mention only percentage dw 2.o. Okay. So generic structure of data view is like you need to have a data view version declaration. You need to have the output type. Okay. You need to have the output type. Then there will be three hyphens and then body. Okay. Where you write your scripting. Okay. For modules, you don't have to mention anything. You can simply maintain this. Okay. So here I want to have maintain HTTP status variable in this object format. Okay. Here I'll only give bad underscore request. Okay. Bad underscore request and value as 400. Okay. So how this hash map, like we call it as hash map. Okay. Okay. So each hash map will have like key and value for that hash map. Okay. So how this hash map works is, for example, let's say you want to call that, you want to
మామ
derive variable.
అది
Okay.
వేమూరి టవర్స్ దగ్గర ఒకరికి ఒక 5 క్యాన్లు ఏమన్నారు మా
Excuse me.
వేమూరి టవర్స్
బ్రో మ్యూట్ లోకి వెళ్ళి బ్రో.
సారీ బ్రో.
Okay. See here, if you give hash map, right? So it will, if you simply pass the key, it will fetch the value for you. Okay. So if you simply give a key name, it will give you the value. Okay. So you need to call this way. Okay. So for example, let's say there is no value available for your request. Okay. Like let's say simply error. Okay. So there is no value available here. It's null. So default, you can set it as 500. Okay, so that is how we are going to replicate here. Okay, so here I have maintained a hash map with error identifier, not namespace. Okay, see, bad request can be for HTTP colon bad request. It can be for API kit colon bad request. It can be for anything. Okay, see, always namespace can change. Okay, so if it is bad request, there is a chance where it can change namespace. Okay, but it cannot change identifier because identifiers are same for each error type. Okay, if it's bad request, it's API kit colon bad request. It can also be HTTP colon bad request, but still the identifier is same. It's bad request only. Okay. That's why I'm building a hash map based on the identifier only. Okay, so now go to global error handler. Okay, either you can define another variable in this data view itself, or for your convenience you can define use another data view. Okay, so variable then HTTP status. Okay, so this HTTP status variable name should be same as what you are using in your listener configuration. Okay, in listener configuration, if you are using status code, then your variable should be status code. Okay, so this HTTP status, this variable name should be same. For example, let's say if I use status code, I need to use status code variable only to set the HTTP status. Okay, since I'm using HTTP status variable, I need to use same variable here. Okay. So now I have written my hash map, this variable in a module here. Okay, HTTP status codes.dwl file. Okay, so it is there in source main resources. So I need to import that module first. Okay, using import statement. Import modules. Okay, import modules : status codes. Okay, so the how this will be structured is, see, if I have additional folder inside this modules, right? For example, let's say I create HTTP inside modules. Okay, and then I move this DWL file there. Okay, inside HTTP. Now, while referring, I cannot directly refer HTTP status code. I need to give HTTP status code, like modules, HTTP folder, and then HTTP status code. Okay, I need to give this much. Okay, so here, what I need to do, I need to execute the same thing: error type dot identify. Okay, and default is 500. Okay, now if I deploy this application, so you are able to understand, right? Like what I'm doing here with respect to error handler.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. See here. Now, just a second. So it is failing that expression. Okay. So unable to resolve HTTP status code. Oh, okay, okay. Sorry. See, the convention is after you import HTTP status codes, right? You need to again give : to import what variable or function that you are trying to execute. Okay. See, in a module, you can define as many as variables you want and as many as functions you want. Okay. So you need to explicitly mention which variable or which function you are trying to call. Okay. So that's why HTTP status code : HTTP status, and then you need to write your expression from using which you want to dynamically pick the HTTP status code. Okay, now this will come. So we need to revisit error handling again after we implement process API and system API. Okay, so that way you will have strong understanding of error handling, like how we implement in MuleSoft and how we can capture errors dynamically from layer to layer. Okay, so now it is giving appropriate error. Okay, so if I change the value for this status code, right, like 403. Okay, I can change the value. Okay, I just need to redeploy it again. So whenever balance, whatever HTTP status code I configure here, it will display that status code. So now it's displaying 403 status code. Okay. So see, since I have written any block here at the beginning, every errors will match here. It will never execute this block. Okay. If I move this block upper, okay, let me do it from here. So if I move this block here, if the error type matches here, then it will return this error itself. Okay. See, now it's giving me error occur. See, without setting the HTTP status, I'm getting 500 error. Okay, how this works is in listener configuration, there is a default value configured. Okay, so how this default works is, for example, let's say if you are trying to read a value for this variable, and if the variable value is null or empty, if you mention default and give some value, if the preceding value is null or empty, then it will display this default value. Okay, so that is how it is able to generate this HTTP status code as 500. Okay, so now we are clear with the error handling, right? Like how to configure global error handler, how to configure module and status code dynamically. So you're clear with that, right?
Yeah, Jagdish. One doubt here, which is best practice here? I mean, specifying the exact error code or giving any is which one is the best practice in real time?
Specifying the exact error code. Okay, see, if I simply return error occurred, no one will understand what is happening. Okay, so it may be mistake from my request also. Okay, so if my request has invalid values or invalid data, I need to know what I'm doing wrong. Okay, so that I can correct my request and then hit the API again. Okay, so if the API returns some vague responses like error occurred or internal server error, I can never understand what's happening at the backend. So I always need to reach out to MuleSoft support or development team and ask them to check in logs what's happening for each and every error. Okay, so in order to avoid that, you need to populate some meaningful error messages. Okay, so if I populate some error message like this, see here, name parameters are not defined in API spec. So fine. So I'll change my storage. I'll change my query parameter. Okay. Again,
Anyhow, we will not display the same errors in UI, right? UI guys will take care of writing the meaningful messages, right? In
that
case
is
you cannot.
different. Yeah. So that is different how they display. But at least for the UI developers to understand what is happening, they should get the proper message, right?
Yeah, got it.
For example, let's say customer is trying to enter a phone number which belongs to US. Okay, by giving the country code. So first of all, that's a UI developer mistake. If he is not supporting any country or any other country phone numbers, he should not give option to enter other country phone numbers. But still, he's giving that option. Okay. When the request comes to API, what we will say, mobile number is invalid. Okay, or internal server error. Okay, for that particular request. What UI developer will do, so they will decide during testing if they're receiving mobile number invalid as error message from API, then they will propagate the same error to UI also. If they are not receiving that error, and if they're receiving internal server error, they don't want to tell customers what is happening or some problem with our APIs. They will simply return invalid mobile number itself.
Okay.
Okay, understood, right?
Yeah.
So that is how error handling will be implemented. So that's why always you should return some meaningful information. Okay, so that your client applications can understand what is going wrong. Okay.
Just only global error handling we are using, or we have any specific a third party thing to do the error handling? No, right? Only global error handling only we are using, right?
Not global error handler, Mule specific error handler. Okay, so majorly we always use global error handler. Okay, there may be few cases where I want to use flow specific error handler. For example, let's say I'm reading database here. Okay, so if there is any connection failure with database, I need to handle it here alone and I need to ignore that error. Okay, so what I can do, I can use
by using try catch, right?
Yeah. So I can use try catch block. Okay, under catch I can use on error continue. Okay, so on error continue. If any errors occur here, it will ignore that error and proceed further.
Okay.
Okay, so there may be few flow specific error handling also that you need to do.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, so I will show you a live API. Okay, so I already have a few applications. I will show you a live API itself. Okay, so this is
Yeah, definitely we want that, because
yeah,
we
yeah,
need some confirmation,
yeah,
how
I understand.
really it should be there in real
Correct.
time
Yeah. The
application.
reason I'm explaining this first now is you need to understand how error handling behaves, how on error propagate and on error continue works, how you can set the error message, how you can use modules to set dynamic status code or any dynamic values. Okay. That is the reason I'm explaining these things first. Okay. So once you get hold of these concepts, then we can look into live API and discuss on that.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Okay, any doubt?
Hi, Jagdish. Could you explain that mule expression that you written to access that variable in the DWL file?
Variable in DWL file.
HTTP status codes.dwl.
Yeah.
In the second transfer message, you
So
yeah,
this one, right?
yeah, this one.
Okay. See here in listener, you are while responding back to client application, you are reading HTTP status code from this variable. Okay,
Okay.
HTTP status.
Okay.
So let's say your request has received here, then here, then here. It has failed for some reason here. So then the control went here, okay,
Yeah.
and then control went here. After this execution, where it will go, it will return back to the listener.
Yeah.
Okay, to respond back to client application.
Yeah.
By this point of time, it expects some value for the status code. Okay.
Okay.
So if there is no value for this HTTP status, then by default it will print 500 error.
Okay.
Okay, understood, right?
Yeah.
By default it will print 500 error. Okay, so here what I have done is I can simply print 400 or for whatever status code I want, I can simply print it. Okay.
Okay.
But HTTP protocol has some status codes. Okay. So it's up to you either to use or not. Okay. But it will be useful for client application to decide what type of error they are getting. Okay.
Okay.
For a bad request error, if you throw 403, that means forbidden. Okay. So what they'll understand, they'll understand they don't have access to hit this API.
Okay.
Okay. So, but the actual reason is different.
Yeah.
Okay. So you should always maintain a list. For example, say bad request. Okay. Anyway, in mule error object, right?
Yeah.
You can see the identifier separate, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this talks about what type of error you are getting. Okay. And
Okay.
namespace talks about from where you are getting that error. Okay.
Okay.
If it says API kit bad request, that means you are getting a bad request error from API kit router.
Okay.
If it says HTTP bad request, then it means you are getting bad request error from a HTTP requester.
Okay.
Okay. So if it says DB connectivity, then means you are getting a connectivity error from database.
DB. Okay.
So identifier always talks about what type of error you are getting, and namespace always talks about from where you are getting that error.
Okay.
Okay, so using the identifier, you can decide, like you can dynamically decide what type of error you are getting. Okay.
Okay.
So that's why I am passing identifier here. Okay. And
Okay.
in this module, what I have done for
Yeah, got it.
identifiers that I know, I am setting a value, static value here.
Yeah.
Okay. If I simply pass value for this hash map, we call it as hash map basically.
Okay.
So hash map will have key value. Okay.
Okay.
If you pass key name, you will get value.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So if I pass bad request key, I'll get value. Say
Yeah.
400.
Yeah.
Okay. if I pass some key that does not exist in hash map, it will return null. Okay.
Okay. By
So that's
default, we
why,
can set, yeah.
yeah, that's why I'm setting default value as find.
Yeah, now I understand. Got it.
Got it?
Yeah. Thanks, James.
Any more doubts? Hello?
Yeah.
No, good for now.
No.
No.
And today,
Hello.
yeah.
This is Ashok. Can we manage this error handling in ML file also?
No. Because say RAML file, even if you configure error responses, that's useless in code. You cannot
Not
use it.
YAML file.
YAML file,
Why?
you can manage. You can manage in properties. We'll come to that point. Okay. So
Sure.
like I'll
Thank
show you how to configure dot properties and dot YAML. Okay, as properties file. We are not there yet. Like we didn't come to application configuration yet. We are still in basics. Okay, like how listener works, how API kit router works, console works, and how error handling works. We are still at basic stage. Okay, once you are clear with these topics, then I'll take you to configurations, application configurations, using mule artifact.json. Okay, how you can use this file. Okay, so all these things I'll explain. But you are clear so far, right? With respect to API kit router, API kit console, and how error handling works. All these things you are clear, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So this module, right? You can use it for any purpose. Okay, you can also set write your own functions. For example, let's say fun get timestamp. Okay, like you can return now. Okay. So in code, what I can do, I need to print a timestamp, error timestamp. Okay, or timestamp. So I can simply call timestamp. Okay. Okay, so I didn't import this. I need to import that module. Okay. You can call that function like this to print timestamp. Okay. You can use modules not only in error handling. Okay, you can use it anywhere in this project. Okay, you can use it here also. Okay, all you need to do is you just import the so import the module. Okay, and then call the function. Okay, and then call the function. Use it, you can use modules anywhere. Okay, for example, let's say in your entire project you may be using multiple writing multiple transformations, and there are few set of values that you want to format again and again. Okay, instead of duplicating that code, simply write it in a module. Make sure it accepts parameters and returns proper value in generic way, and then call that module here. Okay, so I'll show examples for this. Like when we learn about data view, we'll explain deeper. Understood, right?
Yeah.
So for
Jagdish,
today,
like, can you show how did you refer this global error handling to our main application?
see, in global configuration, okay, so you have something called configuration. Okay, so here you can refer default error handler. Okay, see whatever error handler name you use. For example, let's say I use my error handler. Okay, so if I use that name, I need to go to global configuration. Okay, I need to create a global configuration. Okay, global configurations. Here I can specify what default error handler I can use.
Okay.
Okay, so whatever error handler name you give, that will be displayed here. Okay, so you can have multiple error handlers in a single application also.
Okay.
Okay, but the only thing is, if you configure configuration for one error handler, the other will be useless. We cannot use it. But still, logically, you can write it, but you can never use it. Both of them at once.
Okay.
Jagdish, in the error handler, you define two transform messages, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you define the second variable also here in the first transform message?
Yeah, you can decide. Define. See here itself, there will be a symbol to add new target. Okay. Click on
Okay.
add new target. You can select what type of target you want to add. Either you want to set a property, or you header, or you want to set a variable. Okay. Here you can give.
So
define
in
variable.
this case, in the fourth step, we can simply add that single line statement, right?
Yeah. Here. That's it.
Okay.
So you can delete this. You can use single data view itself. Only reason we use separate data views is to make sure. For example, let's say I will rename this as set response. Okay. Or set error response. Okay. Then I will rename this as set HTTP status code. Okay. So now it is easier for me to understand, okay, what is happening at each data view. Okay. I don't have to go to this data view, select if there are any variables set, and then check these values, and then decide what is happening here. Okay. In general way, like simply by looking at it, I can get an idea what is happening. Okay, so it's always recommended to use separate components for each functionality that you do. Okay. Instead of writing everything in single data view. Okay, this is clumsy and it's not recommended also. For example, let's say you have generated payload here. In next transformation, you can use whatever you have received in payload. Okay. Whereas if you generate payload here first, and then if you are setting HTTP status in next target, not sure either that value is available by that point of time. Okay, because we don't know how mule runtime executes, right? Either it executes in order or excuse me, right? So that's why always it's recommended to write it in separate components.
Sure.
Yeah. Understood, right?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. Okay. So today you try few things on error handling that we discussed today. Okay. And tomorrow let's continue with actual API-led connectivity implementation again. Okay. So this is with respect to experience API that I have explained. Like so far we discussed about how to create RAML, how to import it as a dependency in your project so that you can track changes that are happening at design center, and how to generate flows from RAML. What is API Kit router and what is API Kit console, how it works, okay, how you can enable or disable validations in API Kit router, okay, how you can set strict validations or how you can disable validations, how to write custom mappings, okay, and how error handling works. Okay, we have discussed these many points so far. So you try to recap and practice some problem statements on this. Define your own problem statements. Okay. So once we get into advanced topics, I will start giving assignments. Okay.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay, Jay.
Okay. So let's connect tomorrow.